Welcome to the Sterning Human Resources podcast, where we provide insights and discussions on all things related to the human resources community. At Sterning, we are dedicated recruitment professionals with deep networks in the HR industry. We specialise in sourcing HR professionals on a temporary or permanent basis and are committed to delivering tailored advice and the ideal results while maintaining the highest standards of service, integrity, and quality control. Our podcast will keep you up to date with new HR roles, thought leadership posts, industry discussions by subject matter experts, and updates on the HR market. Join us as we discuss topics such as generalist HR, learning and development, remuneration and benefits, industrial relations, OD, HRIS implementations, change management, recruitment, and much, much more. One thing that we're hearing as human resources experts at the moment is that flexibility is at the top of everybody's list. So when we are talking to candidates and they're trying to find a new role, the first question they will normally ask is the workplace flexible? Is this role flexible? And obviously that means different things to different people. And we recently did a poll, and 59% of people came back and said that flexibility was at the top of their list when looking for a role out of flexibility, money, and people development. Now, we've called Noa in today, and we've met Noa before, and you'll see that she's actually on our website. She's done a couple of purpose sessions with us before, and we love her expertise. And Noa is an executive coach, and she is an expert in designing workplaces that work for humans. So really around that design thinking, and that's why we've called Noa in today, because she has these conversations day in and day out and helps leaders to organize their workspaces and work minds. So thanks, Noa. Thanks for joining us.
So much fun.
So much fun. So if you there's lots of ambiguity, and it's a relatively simple term, hybrid work, but obviously there's a lot of complexity that comes with it. So I would love to hear your thoughts around, what flexible work means to you, what hybrid means to you, or what you've heard other people say it means to them.
That's a great question, because one of the things that I try and do almost the first thing when I walk into an organization is try and understand what their words mean to them. And so one of the things we have, I think at the moment, a little bit like the word love or change, like everyone's like, yeah, I get that. But everyone gets it different. And as soon as you get it different, you might be talking a different language and really having very different conversations. And so the first thing I think I'd like to do is kind of dive a little bit into some of the options behind the word flexible, and really see why it's actually way more complicated than the short word that we all know how to spell, right? And we say it quite often, can't you be a bit more flexible? Really behind the experience of hybrid, flexible work, remote work, all of those words is probably the biggest change that we've seen in workforce in the last century, right? So it's
since the Industrial Revolution.
Exactly. And also it was just how it was, right? So it was one of those things that some people were kind of checking and testing, and they were the first people that were, but really it was on the edges of work. And then of course, COVID did what COVID did, which is like, hey guys, you can do something different. And it was very tragic for some and amazing for others. And here we are today in the new reality. What really hybrid means is change, choice, complexity, thoughtfulness, debate, effort, right? Now, those are words that they sound positive in English, but when you are running hard and trying to create a business that is struggling anyway, because so much is happening in the global financial situations, and just running a business is hard, I don't think they become your favorite words in an organization. And so one of the reasons we pull people back and say, hey, let's think about this, is that actually it's design work. And design work is thoughtfulness work, and thoughtfulness work is hard to do when you're running.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's a little bit why I think we're seeing tension today. So if previously everyone was excited because it gave us the opportunity to maintain these businesses under quite serious circumstances, now it's like, right, can we go back? Like you hear that a lot, right? You hear it from employers mainly. Can we go back? And one of the questions I have to employers is, when have you ever gone back? Like, when has going back to anything been a real thing, right? Because
Yeah.
one of the things with change is we have transformed. And so when we talk about hybrid, there's a lot of tension because there is a thought at the moment, I think, that we can go back. Like some organizations are like, yep, let's dial this back.
Yeah.
I think that needs to leave our speak, because
Yep.
do we really want to go back? What we want is stability, and can we get the best from our workforce? Because, you know, running a business is really hard. So that's the kind of conversation I'd like to have today, which gives some space for thinking. I think practitioners and candidates just need a moment to think how to think about these conversations.
Yes. And have them the right way. I think that it it really does flow on to engagement, participation. Like, we talked about presenteeism, but how much effort will people put in if they're forced to do something? No one loves to be forced to do
Ever.
anything. So going into that, how do we talk about flexible and hybrid as an
Fabulous
employer?
question. Let's do it. Okay, so pens out. First of all, if you are an employer, my process is always to start inside out, because getting to know yourself and kind of, this is how I'm thinking about things, is really important. There is, employers have within their structure the ability to use what I call the high horse of power. I am the one hiring, I'm the one with budgets, I'm the one that can set the policies. So you don't like it, lump it and leave it, which is absolutely, I want to acknowledge, absolutely something you can do, right? So that's my question to employers is this who you want to be? Okay, question number one, which is a hard question. Like, that is not a facetious, just like ticking question. Is that who you want to be? Okay, because really what we're saying is, when it gets hard for me as an employer, I'm going to use the simple, nothing is simple in employment.
A simple stick approach.
That kind of, look, dude, like I have so much on, like, seriously, do you not understand commercials is the question I always get. I'm like, I do. This will translate into a huge lift, right? Which is,
Yes.
now it's effort. Now it's confusion. Now it's messiness. Now it's a conversation about who do we want to be.
Yeah.
So there's a promise to become operational, but first we start with, who do you want to be, right? So that's question number one. Question number two is, how much effort am I going to put forward to this? Because really employment is about a relationship, right? There's a relationship about value, about how I define value, so pay, EVP, like all of the things that relate to value. And then how do I assess value? Which is like a forever, we can talk about this in another podcast, right? Like, how do we assess value? But the first thing I look for, and this is why your point about your poll is so important, is I'm looking for signals from employers that they are employers who have conversations with their employees about value.
Yeah.
So will you listen to my question about flexibility? Will you become curious when I say, hey, what's your flexible workplace? Or will you go, oh, who do you think you are? I haven't offered you a job yet, right? And all of us know that we've had that question in our minds when we've been rushed. So when I'm hiring. So the first thing is, welcome the question, because you have a participant who wants to be a partner. Okay, so that's kind of the second thing that that I want to discuss. And then the third thing is, as employees or as participants in the, that are not part of the organization, is how do we understand that this is really hard? And no, there's no one who has an answer. And yes, this is complicated, and even more, potentially I won't get exactly what I want. I don't think there's a situation where everyone gets everything they want. I've never seen it.
No.
You have children, they have a list of things that they're not happy with, and and fair enough, it's a relationship, we figure things out.
Yes.
So I think that also needs to be discussed, because it's not a let me throw my, myself on
Yeah.
the hissy fit about employers everywhere. It is a really hard situation.
It is a hard situation because there's a number of people that we do come across that are really rigid in their
Yeah.
flexibility ones. It's like, I need 3 days from home because I've set up my life around these three
Yes.
days from home. And I think that obviously we just deal with human resources folk, but you need to, then also needs to be a give and take situation, because depending on the organization and the culture, things like, there's so many different levels to it, depending on what's happening with the culture, the commercials, and then the people issues. Like, it's important to be face to face and understand what's going on with the business, like a blue collar workforce versus a tech company, and
Yeah.
there's so many nuances to
So
it.
I think what I would suggest is understand. So because like in coaching, you sit with a person, you go, hi, this is your moment. What do you want to do to lift to wherever you want to lift to, right?
Mm,
So one of the questions is, if 3 days is your pond, like the pond that in which you are playing, which is
mm,
absolutely fine. I don't have
mm.
daycare solutions, the car, I have to, share the
Yep.
car. Work, I'm all for work being challenging and expanding our life, and I spend a lot of time doing that, but mainly it needs to aid our lives. So if your moment in time is a 3-day rigid or very clear structure, be clear about that and be clear on what will not be available to you. So if it is a blue collar workforce and we are people and we are not there, that will be a strange situation. So I
Yep.
think employers absolutely within their rights, it won't work.
Yep.
That's okay. Like, I looked on ethical jobs just before, and there's a bunch of jobs that you can do online, right? Like, it's just the pond is smaller.
Yep.
That pond is smaller. But understand that there are requests from employers that are absolutely valid. This is us. This is why this is us. This is why this works for us. And by the way, we're open to test and learn.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah, I think it's that openness that makes the really big difference, isn't it? Because you said before about welcoming the question. I think welcoming the conversation, and it's the rigidity on both sides that clash, and it's like, it
yes.
just doesn't work.
So rigidity in human relationships in general ends up in a pile of people crying and rocking themselves, into sadness.
Sunday scaries.
Yeah, that's why we need ice cream, preferably just lemon. But that's the idea. So rigidity anywhere blocks curiosity. It blocks nuance. It limits inclusivity. Right. So again, who are we? And so if I'm blocking curiosity, I should check in with myself and see how I got to the place, which is quite easy, by the way, these days, to be so overwhelmed that I've locked out curiosity. Right. One of my first inklings that I need an intervention is that I can't find in myself to become curious about something or a situation. I just go straight into, let me solve this for everyone, even though you haven't asked me to. And we're all in those situations. Like, seriously, I sit with people and they are exhausted.
Yeah.
And then here I come with, let's be curious. And the reason I do that is it will solve everything down the line. It will solve everything, right? Because a person who feels heard will give you an inkling that something is wrong early. They will say, hey, this thing has happened. I know we said in the interview that I'm only 2 days, but this thing has happened. Can we talk about it?
Yes.
Right. And so it solves everything, because what you're doing is building a relationship of trust, building a relationship of partnership, saying it's complicated, don't have all the answers. We're going to do our best. This is the policy for now. We're going to run it for 6 months. Please stay in touch. Tell us where it impacts you. Some organizations are doing that beautifully, and some organizations are rigid, and others have lost patience.
Yeah. I think that we see that, and the ones that are rigid and are trying to recruit the best in the market, that it limits their pool as well. You can't.
You will have a limited. Also, it creates what we call person organization fit. So you will probably hire people who are more rigid, more traditional. Again, there's room for everyone in the ecosystem.
100%.
You are looking for forward thinking, designing for the future, because I would like to think that COVID is the last time we're challenged by the environment. I have a feeling it's not. So people who are thinking about this ecosystem as a developing system are the people that you want, because you need to do your business. Like, you need someone looking out for the future as well as caring for the very complicated situations in the workplace, right?
Yeah.
And this aligns to conversations about performance. A lot of the issues that we have around flexible and hybrid with management is how do I know they're working? So that's the most common barrier, right? How do I know they're working? And my question is always, how do you know anyone's working ever? Like, way back 2 years ago, before COVID, I remember I had a manager who said, I have an issue with people looking at their phones. And I said, is like, no problem. If it's on shift when you have customers, we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
If you have a white collar worker that has taken a moment and is looking at their screen, you don't know if it's a school, you don't know if it's something has happened, or you know what, they're just taking a break.
Yeah.
Why do you care is my question. Why are we controlling people? Do you always just do perfect work, never get diverted? So what is with the control? What is behind the need to control?
Yeah.
Then we get curious about it, not judgmental, curious. What is not going on? Oh, productivity. Okay, let's talk about what's going on and how do we do it in a trusted partnership way.
And then have the right conversations.
And it's hard because there is a really deep belief that once you become a manager, you become so accountable that you have to start telling people what to do. And I believe more that you're a guide, a strong guide, like not like clarity. So I call it clear and clear. So you create clear direction and clear the way so people can do their work, right?
Yep.
And if that was as easy as the slogan, you wouldn't be interviewing me today. So
No, that's
clear is forever. Like, I don't know, this is messy. Like, you have
Mm.
bank collapses, and then you like changes in fair work regulations. And so you're constantly moving. But why not move together? Why not move as employees, as partners?
Yes. So going, like how do you design the workplace to fit flexibility?
So first of all, and let's take a pause. How many of our decisions are based on our opinions, expert as we are, and how many are on data? So with our people decision making, so how many are based on opinion and how much on data? And my strong suggestion is to create some sort of infrastructure or some sort of architecture around gathering information. That's the part people usually drop off and start eye rolling respectfully, because that sounds like effort. But you would never launch a product without doing customer testing, right? Like, you would never go, oh, I have this bright idea. Well, some people do, but usually we have some process around it. Why not for our people, right? So what is flexible for teams who do complex work is different from people who are doing call center. Okay, so
Yep.
complex work requires that back and forth, and hey, I've had an idea, and that thing that you said, and that requires some face-to-face. This was actually given to me by a leader. He said, we had our 40th birthday before COVID, right? Like, one of them had a 40th, and it was just this beautiful night of everyone just sharing and, fairy lights and jokes. And then COVID hit and we had another one, and it was on the boxes. And we really tried, but that energy wasn't there, right? So I think we can all acknowledge that is needed, that type of work is needed, that creativity is better together. It just doesn't mean that that's the only type of work. So first of all, move from opinions to data and hold yourself accountable to the fact that you are amazing, but no, you don't know the answer. So that's that. It also gives an opportunity to partner, right? So that's kind of
open the curiosity box.
Yeah, and then remember to be outcomes driven. So if what we're aiming for is the best work, the most magnificent thriving experience, but also the best work, what does that mean? Is it what we're doing now because we know everything, or is it something that maybe we don't know? and kind of really digging into what kind of work we do. So one of the things that's interesting is you call it work from home, right? But in one of the organizations I worked, we called it deep work. So instead of saying, hey, I'm working from home, which is a location, you say, what I'm going to do today is deep work. So I've got 4 hours closed off for that. So you won't see me on the calendar and I will not be answering Slack.
Yep.
Versus I'm working from home, which assumes that I'm doing the washing and hanging out at the beach, right? So there is a conversation of what is the work that we're doing and what work are we going to do in the office. And so do we have collaboration spaces that don't make us want to poke ourselves in the eye, you know, from despair, you know. And so I'm not advocating for ping pong tables, but there are environments that inspire creativity versus this is a chair and this is a table and sometimes a plug for your laptop. So that's kind of my suggestion. And finally, think far ahead. Don't just solve the problem that is now, which is very, you know, don't just be tactical.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's kind of.
So when you're thinking far ahead, do you mean next month, next year? What? Can you give me an example?
That's a fabulous question, because one of the things we know, and there's significant research on this, is that we are terrible at predicting the future. Absolutely terrible, right? We're like, if I lose 5 kilos, that's it. My world will shine. Like there will just be sunshine. The dishes will make themselves. Like I will not be pissed off at that. And it's never true, right? Like we're actually very bad at predicting, both in markets and, you know, like that. So that question is a great question, because we're actually like, so what do you want long term, right? Is it growth? So are we intending to grow? Do we have the talent that we want? Are we seeing consistently things in our engagement surveys that are saying people are starting to be antsy about this topic? Maybe we can address it here and now, right? Like hybrid is not just about sorting out how many days people are working at home. Hybrid is about how we work, right? And so I heard a fabulous, like this was, I'm really sad I didn't hear this before, but the idea of when you put in the Slack, like in Zoom now, as we're talking, if I have a question, is it a burning platform question? Does the conversation need to be stopped so there's an icon for that? Or is it I have an idea, so a hashtag, I have an idea, or so you're flagging the question so that the person who is interacting knows how to move the debate around.
Yeah, cool.
That changes the whole conversation.
Yes.
Right? How we do meetings, who's included, how we talk about performance. If someone is not showing up, do we assume the worst about them? So it's just everything.
I really like that inclusivity piece, because I saw a meme the other day, and it was me trying to get a word in a Zoom meeting, and it was two people with a skipping rope, and then the guy tries to jump in
and you fall over, and then you fall over. Yes.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is such a good idea.
And people who don't want to be seen on screen. There's a whole lot. So every time, and this is one of the things I wanted to say about change. Every time you change one thing, you change everything. So think about your living room. I tend to do this. I'm like, I'm just going to move that, like that chair over here. And invariably after 6 hours, right, I've moved my whole living room. I've had to clean out my cupboard because I needed to put something in there, and then there's piles of things, and usually that thing is still in the corner. So every time you move something around, everything moves around. It shakes things up, and it shakes things up that you may not have known are a problem, which is a gift, right? So that's a gift. So that's where the effort comes in, right? Like you're shaking things up and everyone's like, Noah, can we just not shake on a Friday? Like, can we just and the answer is yes, you don't have to shake on a Friday, but if you don't shake, it's going to come at you without you being the person driving it.
Yeah. And there's nothing worse.
Nothing worse. And today what we know is people are looking for signals that I can trust you. So one of the things that happened in COVID, which was very interesting, is, do you really care about me? Do you really care about me? Because if you really cared about me, you would make life easier so I could keep my family safe.
Yeah.
would attend to the fact that I'm hyper anxious, but I can't show you because I'm afraid I'll lose my job and looking for a job during COVID. So we're looking for trust signals. And a huge trust signal is when it gets hard, I get into curiosity and conversation without promising that I'll give you everything. I never promise that I'll give everyone everything. So I think if candidates are listening to this conversation, be aware just how hard it is to do things. You have to upskill your management for different conversations. So one of the articles that I just read on LinkedIn is just what different skills you need as managers to manage through empathy, drive performance without like the visuals. Again, I'd say that they were always a dodgy way to assess productivity. But it is a completely different way to manage. So are we giving our managers the skill sets?
Yeah.
We just go, hey, it's changed. Knock yourself out figuring it out, right? So
run with it.
And you know, running with scissors is always a good idea, right?
No. And so, like, what have you seen work? I know, like collaboration and that face-to-face time and teams. What have you seen work really well with some of the people that you're working with in terms of that team cohesiveness?
So again,
in a hybrid workplace,
it really depends on what the work is. So, for example, teams that are call centers, okay, or that are doing their work as service on the phone, can we collaborate on mistakes, for example? So one of the teams, one of the work that I did was how do we talk about mistakes? Because it's really easy to hide. It's always easy to hide mistakes. It's even easier when you're at home.
Yeah.
Right? So if we create a dynamic where we pull out mistakes as our culture and we talk about them, but also develop and be a learning organization, then it changes everything, right? So I think Atlassian had, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but Atlassian did have fuck up Fridays. And so this manager said, I'm not comfortable with that language. So can I do muck up Mondays? And I'm like, you knock yourself out. And so
I like that.
So she went from parenting, so catching out mistakes, to calling out mistakes in the Monday meeting. Everyone called out mistakes, and then there was a discussion. It changed her team.
I love that. Like learning from it instead of hiding it. Like I know when early on in your career, especially when you're starting out, I think that with the hybrid workplace and having something like Muck Up Mondays, when we're first starting out in our careers, being with our team, that's how we learn. And it was listening to the conversations, and it was being able to coach on the job. And I feel like some of that is missing for humans coming into the workforce now. So I love the Muck Up Mondays, because like it's how do we foster that learning environment?
And in the nuances. So it's some of it is let's create a leadership development programs, which I do, right? Some of it is ongoing. So usually I recommend coaching spaces. So once a week, 1 hour, we meet every week. And everyone's like, how do I pay for it? I'm like, really? Your main job as managers is to lead and drive performance. And we don't have an hour to review this really complicated, really high pace, complexity, humans, empathy, all of these things, and we don't have an hour. And so once we started doing it, right, it was a place where people were like, right, I have a question for the group. Like it just became this workout space. And so the meetings were useful for my practice, but also developed me. So instead of going, okay, we have development once a month on a Friday, you know, bring your lunch, it became, we learn as we work. And then we did reflection spaces, and then people just posted. So it became kind of the space that was alive and kicking. Those are low cost, high impact kind of spaces. The going around the room of how you are, I think, is very important, but I don't think that is the definition of a learning space. So I think it's important to connect. The other thing is, and I would love to hear from people that are hearing this, whether it's worked for them, leaving spaces for conversations that just need to happen, right? Like that ability to go, you didn't look good on the call. Let's jump on, and I'm not running between 15-minute intervals is really, really important. Now that is hard, but that conveys a lot, right? Like, I'm open, I'm here to answer your questions, all these things that happened this week, and we didn't have a time for a one-on-one.
Yep.
So it's little things like that. Other things are shared time together. So, but valuable shared time. So not just coming in for a beer. Beers are good, pizza are good. We need to do it, but also kind of something that is engaging, playful, shared experience. So I call it playing together. So the more we
Yep.
can play together, the more we learn about each other. So that is very, very important. So to mandate that. The other thing that I wanted to say, which is often not, doesn't make me popular, is that the research around decision making is limited choice makes us happier. Yeah, so everyone needs to sit with that for a moment. But the research is unequivocal. So if I give you 50 choices of what chocolate you want, there's less.
Yep.
Right, it's harder for you to choose, and you feel that you probably lost out because there probably was a better chocolate. If I give you two options, do you want a cupcake or a chocolate? You're like, cupcake, thanks. Right, like,
Yeah.
right.
Don't they call it the Netflix effect?
It's called the choice paradox. Maybe it's Netflix effect. So what Netflix and not just Netflix, bless everyone who's trying to make me do bad things, is they know that we do easy. So whatever is easy, whatever is accessible, that's what I'll reach out. So it is a bad idea to put M&Ms next to you. It's a really bad idea because you will consume them.
Yep.
And so if you don't buy them, then it's, it's better, but you can still consume M&Ms. It's just you make it harder. So I'm a strong advocate of whatever the structure that you've decided for hybrid, to make it, this is the structure. So we come in for 2 days. The days are Tuesdays and Thursdays. Wednesday is optional, but preferred. So I will be in the office on Wednesday. But everyone comes in Tuesdays and Thursdays. Obviously, if you're sick or something happens, let me know. So less choice.
Yeah.
More structure with lots of explanation, lots of partnering, lots of tell me why this doesn't work for you. Do you need a month to get your daycare organized? And so on, but still provide some significant structure on what's expected. Once a month, we have pizza, and I can't drink beer, so I would prefer lemon lime bitters.
100%.
The celiacs need you, okay?
Yes. Inclusivity.
But as much as we can, and also saying, look, we are going to be as attentive to your needs as we possibly can. Here's your human, please talk. But also we will need you to be most attentive to the needs of the organization, because stuff happens and we're here to make the organization successful. So structure your choice. It's not a free-for-all. I'm against, you decide what you want. If you want to come in on Wednesday, because then you're here alone, then you go, see, this work from home is bullshit, and so on. So
yeah, absolutely. I like the Tuesdays and Thursdays. We were working with an organization that mandated Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah,
it's like, oh my gosh, but then they had a 30% reduction in their workforce.
So let me call out, I don't know the organization, let me call out what the assumption there, and this is the part that people, your employees cotton on really fast. You don't trust us because you think we're at the beach Fridays and Mondays. I want to do two things. One is, what's wrong with that? Okay, so one of the things, by the way, there are findings that people work less on a Friday, but they all make it up, all of them, except for your underperformers who are underperformers anyway, on a weekend, in the evening. So there is nothing wrong with understanding that sometimes humans need to go to a dentist, and no, I don't care. Like, I actually do what you need to do, right?
Yep.
So I think there was an assumption there that we're going to call out, we're going to make this hard for you. And why not give people a little bit more time so they can breathe, so that they're not constantly stressed, so that they don't burn out, so that they can see their family that is in Newcastle without driving in peak hour traffic, right? So I guess that's what they had. Like, this was actually an exercise in control packaged as, see, we're flexible.
Yeah. 100%. Nailed it.
So that's So this is why I started with, this is a trust exercise. There is no, this is what you should do. I can give you an example. Which is a company I love, that does test and learn all the time. The CEO said, right, let's move to 4 days a week. Can we do it next week? I'm like, nope, no, 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 nope, nope. But we started the testing the next week. And the way we started the testing was, guys, we have no clue what we're doing. Would you like to be part of a team that for 4 weeks is testing this? And what we found, other than everybody was like, yeah, we'll test it, is that you can't do 4 days a week without having the whole organization on the same schedule.
Yeah.
For example, right? But we were so proud we tested it, right? So
it's so good, and it takes people on the journey together.
Yeah, and they see that their organization is trying and they're testing and it doesn't work. One of the concepts that I use is think of Sundays. So as you're designing your organization, if I said, hey, Emma, can't find a slot for us. I saw Sundays free, so I've just booked us at 2 p.m. You'd be like, who hired her and why is she allowed to practice in Australia, right? Like this is like, and that is because we are very clear on what is appropriate and inappropriate. So Sundays are very clear, right? There's rules around them that we never talk about. And so figure out in your organization, what's a Sunday? Like we don't book meetings on this, or we all come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and there's always pizza on Friday. You'd never have to ask, right? There's always pizza on Friday. So that's kind of what I'm suggesting, is figure out your Sundays.
Like, and then if you do start with the Sundays and those, like, not rules but traditions and the things you do, you have to make sure you keep doing them, because if you stop, they'll think that something's wrong.
Or you call out that the test has shown us something, like we've tried this isn't working. So I'll give you another example of a practical approach. We wanted to create, because meetings lost their marbles, like we lost our marbles, right? Like we were in meetings from the moment we woke up, like people rolled out of bed into a meeting and went to sleep. And so what we tried to do was a Sunday. And so we created a Get Shit Done. So it was Wednesday let's say Wednesday from noon until Thursday noon, right? So you had, and that was supposed to be deep work time. And it was a global company, so we kind of managed calendars. We figured out that that doesn't work. So it was too intense. And so we created a Get Shit Done in the middle. And that was what we tried to make it Sunday. So one of the things that happened is people like, yeah, amazing. So now I know exactly where to book meetings. And so we tried to create a practice of, would you book it on a Sunday? Would you book it on a Sunday? So to do the change management that is required from a group of very tired people. And so leaders went on walks. So, so on purpose, like they went on walk during Get Shit Done time. They had deep thinking. They said no to meetings. So it was a change management process, not perfect. But those are the kind of ideas that's worth testing and learning.
Yeah, I really like that. So if you're thinking, if we're thinking about 3 key takeaways from our conversation today, one is make sure you stay curious. So asking the questions back and forth. So it's a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street, and the stick approach won't work. I like the idea of is it like creating your Sunday? Because yes, people have found that your brain actually switches off after a number of meetings back to back, especially on Zoom. So, or any other type of video platform. And then number 3, I think the key takeaway from me today is around the learning spaces. So making sure that you do create spaces that do encourage learning, and equipping your leaders with the right tools to be able to facilitate that new way of learning for new people, because there are people being left behind.
So, and I think underlying it all, or overarching it all, whichever one you want, is hybrid work is one type of architecture of what creates thriving, productive, high-performing teams and work, right? And so it is supposed to be hard. And I know that that's not a popular message, but no, it's not supposed to be easy. And if you can just create a policy and send it out, you're approaching this as a command and control, which again, I have respect for. This is not me not understanding, but the output of that is that your people have understood that this is not a trusted space, that when stuff gets hard, you're going to send a policy. You're going to not get curious. You're going to not explain that this is a step process, right? You're stopping dialogue because it's hard. And that sends a really strong trust signal to people. So the message is, if you do the work, it's fabulous, right? And that there is work to be done, but there's people that can support you. You guys do great work. People like me or my colleagues.
Yes, 100%. And if anyone does have any questions that they want to ask after this session or after you've listened to this, Noa is available. I am available. We can help you we like point you in any direction, and there's a number of resources that we'll share after this as well. So Noa, is there anything else you want to leave us with today?
I was just thinking of one of the things I say to my kids, hard isn't bad. Hard is just hard. And so when it gets hard, we ask for help. And that's not a mama statement. That is adulting is so hard.
It is so hard.
So ask for help.
You can do hard things.
You can do hard things. You can do hard things. And you know what? You're always proudest that you did. And so one of the things, and I work with a few CEOs that, seriously, the work is so hard. And at the end of it, we go, look at what we did. Right. And almost a sticker situation, right? Like rainbow sticker with unicorn, preferably sparkles.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to celebrate those wins.
Yeah.
So otherwise, what's the point in life?
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Noa, and we will talk to you soon, I'm sure. And I just love having you with us.
Thanks,
Emma. Thank you.
That was so fun.
And that concludes this episode of Sterning HR's podcast, where we've shared our insights and expertise on the latest trends and best practices in the field of HR. We hope that our discussion has been insightful and valuable to you. If you're interested in learning more about how we can help your organisation optimise its people function, please visit our website or contact us directly. We would be happy to discuss how we can partner with you to achieve your people goals. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Bye.